Welcome, everybody, to another edition of This Is Shoot Podcast. As always, I'd like to remind everyone, if you like the content, you like that video, hit the like button, and don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. That way you always get the hottest, freshest videos that I'll be dropping out on a weekly basis, Tuesdays through Thursdays, sometimes on the weekends, and it's absolutely free. You can't beat it when it's absolutely free. But today we're going to be talking about something that's probably not going to be all that popular amongst the fans. And you know what? I had to stomp on my own feet when I was making this video. You know, we today as fans, we wonder what's happened to the wrestling organizations as a whole, the wrestling genre as a whole. Why is it not as exciting as it used to be? Why can't I be entertained by this? Why am I not cheering when I should be cheering? Etc., etc., etc. And though it's easy to point the finger at the writers, and a lot of times, yes, it is the writers, though it's easy to point the finger at Mr. McMahon if you're talking about WWE, or Tony Khan when you're talking about AEW, it's easy to point the fingers at other things and other people, but it's sometimes harder to point the finger at what I have come to believe that the fans, it's us as fans, that are really killing the industry, the wrestling industry. And I wrote, and this is still a shoot, but I wrote down a couple points here because there's a lot of things that you have to look at. A lot of things I had to look at. You know, one of the biggest things that I hear, especially from my generation, which is the millennial generation or older, we need to bring back the Attitude Era. Bring back the Attitude Era. But when any organization, most recently, it was AEW bringing back the bubbly, a little bit of the bubbly where they sprayed the ring down, where the Inner Circle sprayed down the Pinnacle with a little bit of the bubbly of Chris Jericho's champagne. And everybody was just like, well, this is just so unoriginal. Same with Blood and Guts. Oh, this is just War Games. Well, duh. Blood and Guts was just War Games. And if you listen to, and I was listening to the podcast, you know, Tony Khan said, hey, this was an adaptation to War Games, that Blood and Guts was an adaptation of that. Chris Jericho came out and said, hey, we stole this idea from War Games, which was Dusty Rhodes' baby. Dusty Rhodes came up with this back in WCW, before Eric Bischoff and that got there. So yes, it was a bring back, and it is unoriginal, you could say. But think about this. How many original ideas are there left as many years as wrestling has been around? How many original ideas are truly left in the wrestling industry? And when I say the fans, I'm talking about the smallest group, but the loudest group of fans. The social media warriors of the fan base. That, man, we're just gonna downgrade this. And when people try to praise what has been done, or they try to come out and say, hey, man, just enjoy what you're getting, because you know what? There's a lot to enjoy inside the wrestling world today. There's a whole bunch of things to enjoy. The camera work, for the most part, is better. And that was the biggest issue with Blood and Guts. It wasn't the match. Same with the Exploding Death match. The Exploding Barbed Wire Death match that Kenny Omega and Moxley had. It was not the match itself that was horrible. It was a very good match. These wrestlers, these athletes, these superstars, whatever you want to call them, the skill level is far greater than it was back in the Attitude Era or even the Golden Era. The charisma may not be there. The storytelling has diminished. That falls on the company. That falls on the athletes. That falls on the training. Okay, there's nothing we can do about that. But everybody wants this Attitude Era type of substance. But when they're given to them, like AEW has tried to do, and yes, I've made a video about Blood and Guts because the camera angle was bad. And that's not just Jericho's fault. That's not MJF's fault. That's not anyone's fault but the production team that decided, hey, we're going to shoot this angle and put it out there, where I would say the cameramen. And they didn't just accidentally shoot it and then pull away real quick. They shot it and kept shooting it. We've seen this same instance with Bobby Lashley and Matt Riddle when they had their falling out, their feud, where Bobby Lashley pretended to step on Matt Riddle's foot because Matt Riddle likes to walk around barefoot or in sandals, and the cameraman clearly showed Bobby Lashley missing, not even stepping on his foot. That's a cameraman's fault. But when they bring out this attitude era stuff, like shooting, like spraying down the ring, yeah, we've seen it. We've seen it now with Chris Jericho in the Inner Circle. Originally, we've seen it with Stone Cold Steve Austin in a beer truck on Vince McMahon and The Rock. And then we've seen it a couple years later with Kurt Angle coming out with the milk truck. It's still entertaining. Maybe they should have got a little bit closer to the ring. But then it's just criticism that we don't have the right to give. Okay? We're not in there. We're not the wrestlers. Overall, they delivered what they was trying to get across. We have to learn to stop being these armchair writers. You heard of the armchair coach when it comes to football? Well, we're being armchair writers as wrestling fans. We want to criticize everything and praise very little. And then we wonder why we can't be entertained by what's going on the TV. Yes, like I said, there's some things that, you know what, yeah, they need to fix. There's things that they need to do. So sometimes the criticism is necessary. You know, Monday Night Raw, they need to go back down to 2 hours. I feel like 3 hours is just too much wrestling, at least back to back to back. Okay, that's just too much to try to cram in and to make anything make sense, though they have been doing better. Though Monday Night Raw writers have been doing better here lately. Okay, with the storytelling, for the most part. Still not great, still not perfect, but if you look in the mirror, you're going to always find something wrong with yourself. At least you should. I'm not saying you need to be depressed, but you know, no one's perfect. Okay, that's what I'm getting at on this. Nobody is perfect. So then we want originality when we see something unoriginal with something, so unoriginal. So then we want something to be original. The most recent thing that happened was on WWE WrestleMania Backlash, where WWE decided to put zombies in the Lumberjack match as the Lumberjacks. Did I agree with this move? Absolutely not. There's a lot of ways that they could have done this. I like what Mark Henry said on Busted Open, like, hey, if you want to promote the zombies and you want to promote Army of the Dead, Dave Bautista's new movie, there's a way to do it. Same with Bully Ray. Bully Ray had an idea too. But I like Mark Henry's idea better of, okay, whoever loses, you get picked up by the Lumberjacks and you get tossed into a cage of zombies. That would make a lot of sense. Or at the end of the match, the zombies come down the ring ramp chasing everybody out of the arena and things like that. There's so many different ways they could have done it that would have been so much better. Executed way better than what they did at WrestleMania Backlash with The Miz and Damian Priest's match. We got too many people, too many fans that, you know, they just want to bury it. Dave LaGreca was, on Busted Open, was guilty of that, of shutting the show off and not watching any more of it. And he judged that WrestleMania Backlash program off of one match. Not taking into account of all the other matches that had taken place. Not taking into account what else was going on. And it was a great show. WrestleMania Backlash was very entertaining. The match we got between Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, and Braun Strowman was the match of the night for me. So there was a lot of great things. And then you see it in today, well, let's push such and such. Why is WWE not pushing this guy? Why is AEW not pushing this guy? And speaking of AEW, something that's been driving me up the wall is they're pushing guys like Miro and Rusev, Christian Cage. Big Show hasn't made, Paul Wright, that he's better known as, hasn't made his debut in the ring yet. But you see a lot of fans saying, well, why are we getting all these WWE guys? Why is Moxley, who's a WWE guy, why did he get the whole AEW championship? Chris Jericho get the whole AEW championship. You know, why are we pushing all these WWE guys? Let me tell you something why they're pushing the WWE guys right now. Sure, they're pushing guys like Darby Allin. Sure, they're pushing guys with alongside Sting. They're pushing Ricky Starks. They're pushing homegrown talents that you could say. But Ricky Starks did wrestle on NWA. Let's not forget that. Brian Cage came from Impact. Let's not forget that. New Japan, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Ring of Honor. You know, there's not too many homegrown AEW talents. But why was Chris Jericho champion? Let me explain it out to you. When AEW first started, Chris Jericho is the most recognizable face in America. So rightfully, he holds the championship belt. He's going to put it on the map. He's going to help push AEW to that point. And then you got guys like Brody Lee that came in and hold the TNT. Cody Rhodes hold the TNT, which Cody Rhodes, he came from the WWE system as well. So everybody's wanting to complain about AEW pushing WWE guys, but why wouldn't you push the most experienced guys until guys who's wrestling on AEW Dark begin to rise to the occasion? The cream always rises to the top, in the Macho Man's words. Until that cream, that young talent begins to rise to the top. It's not that AEW's not pushing these guys and not putting them in big spots. They have been doing that. But you're going to reward the guys that's going to help your business. It's a business move. You take the most experienced guys who still got a lot left in the tank, guys like Miro, aka better known as Rusev, for instance. He still has a lot in the tank to offer, and that can help AEW get pushed out there because they are recognizable faces. People know who they are. And until you get the homegrown talent, guys like Darby Allin, who are getting over substantially, by the way, until they can take the reins from them guys, and if they're going to get there, but you gotta give it time. If it's booked right, by the way. It's not just about getting them guys there. It's about booking them right to get them to a successful spot. And sooner or later, guys are going to have to begin to step up because the older guys ain't getting any younger. And the young talent's not getting any younger. They're getting older. So they got to begin to take the advice that they are being given backstage by these older WWE guys to that point. But they're not, just for the record, they're not WWE guys anymore because they are AEW guys. That's who this contract is through. They are AEW guys. Pure, simple, straight to the point. But on the retrospect, when we fans beg for someone to get pushed, and when whoever it is starts to push them, and then the same fans want to turn around and go, well, they're cramming them down our throats. They did it with Becky Lynch. They did it with Seth Rollins. They're starting to do it with Drew McIntyre, and Drew McIntyre wouldn't be as bad if he wasn't in the championship matches all the time. These are just some examples that we're pushing out there. And eventually it's going to happen with Big E. Eventually it's going to happen with Darby Allin. Eventually it's going to happen with Apollo Crews. Eventually it's going to happen with guys and gals that are getting this push. And people's going to complain about them. That's just the world of of wrestling. That's the world of wrestling as a whole. Like I said, there's too much of this armchair writing going on. If you guys are that confident in what you have planned or what would be best for business, then why don't you put an application into AEW, Impact Wrestling, NWA Wrestling, WWE? Why don't you put your applications throw your hat in the ring, why don't you? And see if you can do a better job. The pressure that these writers and that's under. And let me tell you something. I can sit there and point the finger at myself and say, I've criticized the same thing. I've been there. Probably will be there in the future at times where I criticize some of the stuff. What drives me up the wall more than anything is bad execution on storylines and bad execution on camera work or something along them lines. It's the small little executions. The storylines and what these athletes are doing, that don't bother me as much. That don't bother me nearly as much. You know, because I know these men and women are going out there and giving their all to get their characters over, to please the fans. I know that. So yes, there are times where it is warranted to criticize what a business is doing because you need to keep them honest. But we got to be careful that we're not just criticizing to criticize and we're making ourselves miserable and making ourselves where we're not able to enjoy the show that's being put on for us. Because many of us, including myself, if you look at me, I'm not no athlete. I'm 260 pounds. You ain't going to see me out there busting my hind end on the ring. As much as it's been a dream of mine to do so, you're not going to see it. I can't do the things that they do. And though I may have ideas of what I want to see done, and a lot of times when I've had these ideas, you know, it has kind of came to fruition to a sense. In a sense. You know, I'm trying to think of some example. When Asuka won the title, I thought it was a great idea. Having Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks main event WrestleMania. When that match was first announced, I instantly thought that should be the main event for one of the nights at WrestleMania. Okay, I'm not taking credit for that because I don't know. These are just ideas. So sometimes I get lucky. But there's been a lot of times where I came up with stuff and it didn't work out, and then I realized why it didn't work out. So the meaning of this video, if you're still bearing with me, is to just learn to sit back and to be fans. Stop being armchair writers. Be fans. If you're not in the business, if you're not a wrestler, and you're not a writer for anything, then sit back and be a fan. Stop criticizing so much to the point where you make yourself miserable watching these things, and stop looking for things to complain about. Learn to enjoy it. Learn to, okay, maybe it's not what you want, but what can you pull away? I can pull something away from every show that I've watched. I've said many times before, SmackDown and NXT is up here for me. And then AEW and Raw, they kind of flip-flop back and forth on me when I watch this stuff. I'm not a mark either way. I'm a wrestling mark. I'm a wrestling fan. That's what's important. Leave your comments down below. Tell me what you think. And I'll see you guys on a Flippity Flip. As always, hit that like and hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys later.